Welcome to the Mortgage Broker Podcast, tailor-made for Canadian mortgage industry professionals. Proudly presented by A Better Way Mortgage Group, this podcast is your trusted source for insider insights, market updates, and strategies to elevate your career in the ever-evolving world of mortgage brokering. Whether you're a seasoned broker with A Better Way Mortgage Group or an industry enthusiast looking to stay ahead, our episodes are designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the Canadian mortgage space. All right, we're back for another episode of the Mortgage Broker Podcast, and today we have a special guest, Craig Vetter, who is a very experienced coach in the mortgage business and somebody we've known for many, many years, and we really appreciate your time being here. And before I pass it off to you, I just want to touch on the top 3 reasons brokers have found success, and that's ultimately what we're going to get into with Craig today. Derek's with us as well. So Craig, thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. It's been a while. I've listened to your guys' podcast, so I'm excited to be on here and hopefully help share some knowledge that I can with your listeners and your brokers.
I think we definitely will. I know you're very humble when it comes to your success and the people that you coach, and I think where I see some serious kudos to you is just the people you coach are certainly elite brokers in this industry, and they remain your clients for many, many years, which I think is a testament in its own. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this, and we have some cool stuff we're going to touch on at the end of the episode around some specific A Better Way programs that we're looking at with yourself and some software that we're going to touch on today. So with that, let's just jump right in. We're going to start off with the first segment of the show, the pillars of success. And so with that, where do we start?
Yeah, I think, when we talk about the pillars of success, you and I, we talk about this quite a bit. There's lots of different things as a broker that you can get into, and it becomes overwhelming. So I think the first one, if we start out, I think would be consistency. And if you're not consistently doing activities, you're missing the opportunity. In James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, and I think you guys have talked about that in previous podcasts before, and I love it. I read it every year. His saying that he talks about is consistency over intensity. And you can go out and do something for 5 weeks or 2 months and crush it, but it's better to do it over 365 days. And so that's what I talk about with having consistency in what you do for the mortgage brokers. For me, I like to break it down in 3 areas where you can be consistent. So if I can go over those, I think that, in the file, so if you talk about from when the lead comes in to funding, you need to be consistent in following up with your clients. You need to be consistent in updating them. I've got one of the clients I used to work with, and she always said is, if a client or a referral partner calls us when we have a deal with them and it's not funded, we've messed up. So either I'm getting a new referral or I'm getting, new business coming in, or they're saying thank you. But if it's any questions on the file, she would use different words, but she said we messed up with an F word in front of it. And that was her psychology around it. And I loved it because it's really just following up with your leads, following up with your referral partners, following up with the clients. And most people do a terrible job at that. And it's missing out on opportunities to do that. So I think second thing with that would be consistency in post-funding. So most brokers are good at the process. They're good at taking the call. They're good at getting it funded. But they say that, if they compare themselves to realtors, they're like, well, mortgage brokers, we're not really transactional. Realtors are transactional. And then I ask them the question, when's the last time you talked to your past clients? And their response is, what do you guys think?
Not for a long time.
Yeah. It's never. It's about, we get an email that goes out once a year, renewal, send out a drip campaign. And so to me, that's transactional. And I don't want to call anybody out on here, but I think that's where you have a great opportunity and in being consistent in doing things like first payment check. And I know you guys at Thrive, that's a part of your guys' program that you do, offering annual mortgage reviews. Easy way to reach out. So we want to basically prepare it and make it super easy to do these things consistently and then have a plan for renewals. If you want to increase the amount of referrals you get, increase the amount of renewals you get, add more value by doing that. And the last one with consistency, I think, is with your realtor and referral partners. So staying in touch on a consistent basis. Yeah. Does that make sense? Is that
clear? Yeah, totally. And I mean, I think a big kind of overlying or underlying theme here is an existing client is always going to be your best client. I mean, it's to the point of follow-up. The time, the energy, and the cost that goes into driving one new lead, right? Like the meetings, the energy, the calls, the follow-ups. You bring that lead in and then you stop following up with them. Like, what an absolute waste of time and energy, to the same point of after funding. That client knows you, you probably did a good job. They're probably really happy with your service and they probably want to hear from you. But for whatever reason, people seem to have this block, right? This fear of following up. And to me, like, if you can't follow up the people that know you and like you, I don't know who you're going to be able to follow up with, right? And I think that's the biggest hurdle for brokers to overcome in today's world, right? Everything's gotten so virtual and so techy and so AI. Like, you have to have a personal approach to this.
Yeah, and I mean, when you talk about the acquisition costs, I mean, depending on where you're getting your leads from, you can kind of track that, and that would be very detailed tracking. But I would say is when you look at conversion ratio, and so this is my experience with the brokers that I've worked with. This is taking from brokers in the States with the numbers and data that they put out. And when we see with a past client, if you look at from the lead to fund, that's going to be 50 to 55 or 50 to 60% lead to fund. Phenomenal, right? If you look at a past client referral, you're going to look at about 40 to 50%. If you look at a financial advisor, you're going to look at anywhere neighborhood of 35 to 45%. An accountant's going to be a little bit lower. Realtor is going to be in the neighborhood of 10 to 20%. And then if you look online, depending on how much you're spending, if you do organic traffic, you're going to have a higher conversion rate. Organically, but if you're doing paid, what happens is you're driving a lot more and you're going to get filtered through a lot more clients. So if you look at your profitability and just the time invested, like you said, it makes so much more sense to be able
Those are
to
great
do
stats.
that.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this way back when we went through the director of WOW. It's 5 to 25 times more expensive to acquire a new client than retain an existing one.
Yeah, like it's so if you are making a decision, like
Yeah, it's pretty simple, right?
Yeah, that's
and it's
crazy.
like it's funny how like we talk about the other thing we talk about a lot is like the phone is the heaviest item on your desk, right? And it's like part of that is like because calling people that maybe you've never talked to before, that's difficult. I get it. Like, why not call somebody like a past client who probably likes you, right? So yeah, it's very I like that stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, and make it as easy as possible to be able to have those connections, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it.
Okay, so the next piece, tracking.
Tracking. Big believer in tracking. I think if you look at in the business, so you can go really deep, right? And we know that, and you guys have really detailed numbers. But if you look at the average mortgage broker, I think what they should be tracking, the best way would be leads, applications, number of funded files and the volume with it, and the revenue. If you could track that, you have a pretty good idea about your business. And so that is a great starting point right there to track it. Yeah. And you guys feedback on that? What are your thoughts? And
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's, to your point, that's the bare minimum. You can gauge your business on all that, but then you go a little bit deeper and you start tracking your referral sources, like you said. Like, the power in that alone, you can pull a report and say, okay, like, I got 20 referrals from realtors, but 5 of them funded. Like, I should go focus on those people, like, love the people who are loving you. Like, that's a good theme with reporting. I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole on reporting what you can achieve, but just to the point of people that are maybe just starting this process of a CRM and tracking, like, just get the basics in there, right? You want to have a rate and a product so you can pull reports, and we'll dig into some software opportunities later in the episode here. But I think basic is key in all this. You got to have the basics.
A good example of tracking referrals is we were working with an agent that sent us 20 leads in 6 months, and we're like, holy smokes, this is great. What a great relationship this is. And then this other realtor had only sent us 2. And we fast forward to the end of the year. That realtor that sent us 2, there was only 2 we sent, and we funded both of them. And the realtor that sent us 20, it ended up sending us 30, and we only funded 1. Well, that 30 deals, we put a lot of work into those, whether they died at lead stage, documentation stage, review stage, even worse, because we put that much more work into it. The further that file went, the worse it was for us, because our team was, stressed to work on that. So but we wouldn't have known that if we weren't tracking it, and then tracking, but also looking at the numbers. Like, it's one thing to track, but like actually review it.
Review the numbers. And I think that a lot of people, they'll not track it. Then what they won't do also is they won't audit it and see, okay, and they'll look at, well, it's still 2 deals coming in, or whatever it may be, or 1 more deal, right? And what I think is not only, like you said, is the lost cost in the time invested in doing that, but also the lost opportunity cost on working with or finding another realtor partner. Maybe they don't have 100% like that 1, 2 for 2, but finding someone that's going to give you 10 leads and 3 of them fund.
Yeah.
Right. Finding those relationships, or your past clients, or all the other stuff we talked about. But it's not just the cost that you lose with that time. It's also the opportunity cost of more new business, more new opportunities that you're just pissing away because you're focusing and working with people that don't fund and take your time and all this.
100%. I mean, it's so interesting to talk about your time cost, right? And like, to actually go through that exercise, and we've done it a handful of times, is like, where is your time actually spent, and where is it worthwhile? like you have to factor that out and say, okay, well, this is a lot of wasted time. Figure out your dollar per hour. Like for your average file for a mortgage broker, it's pretty significant, right? Like it's a pretty high dollar per hour. So if you actually track your time and you figure out, you know, what steps you should be working on, you should not be working on, but then to your point, like you can actually mathematically figure out where your time is being spent and how much it's costing you. And from there, I mean, that should really shift your business or at least give you a clean path forward.
Yeah, that's very top of mind right now for us because we're time tracking. We're time tracking ourselves right now. Every 30 minutes, we're writing what we did into a spreadsheet, and we do it for 3 weeks. We try to do it every year at least. I mean, this the goal this year is to do it at least 3 times this year, just for 3 weeks. Track what you're doing. You really start to realize where you're wasting time, and then you really start to be very much more meaningful with that 30 minutes. Like, you don't waste anything, right? When you're mindful of it. And tracking, I mean, we wouldn't know unless we were tracking, right?
I mean, I use the analogy like if you came to me and let's say I had to lose whatever 20 pounds in 6 months or 3 months or whatever the number is, and there's like bare bones, I had to make sure this was going to happen. The first thing I would do is I'd write down everything I ate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would track my exercise, so whatever workouts I'm doing, and my sleep. And if I looked after those 3 variables, the only other thing I would add in there is make sure I'm getting enough protein in. So you could say that would be the diet, but the protein. If I did that, I know I will have some success. Like whether it be 20 pounds or 25 pounds, I'm covering off the 80% or the 20% of things that are going to have the 80% of the impact on my life and losing weight. And then if you look at in regards to tracking your time, if you are auditing everything, you'll see pretty clearly like what you're doing with your days. Most people will be embarrassed on what they're doing with their days on a consistent basis.
Well, yeah, totally. And you realize like I was at a Canucks game last night with a bunch of brokers, and I was talking to a broker that we both know very well, and he was saying like, yeah, I planned my drive down here. It's 45-minute drive, and I made sure I had back-to-back calls for the whole drive. It was incredible. And it's like I've noticed like I did the same thing, but I wouldn't always be that mindful. But now that I'm time tracking, I'm like, shit, I got like 45 minutes in here for a drive. Like, better make the most use of that, right? But again, it's just back to being mindful. I'm mindful because I'm tracking and I'm aware of it, right? And it's very easy to get lost. So good piece there. I really like that. Tracking ultimately rolls into process, right? So why don't we touch on some process and then being a big piece of this.
Yeah, when I look at, any mortgage business, and I think if you want to be able to scale, you need to have a really good process. So the analogy that I like to use is you look at one of the best companies in the world for processes, McDonald's. So McDonald's, each one of their locations, they're going to be doing, and everybody would be a little bit different, but anywhere between 500 and over $1 million in profit in each location. Yet they're ran by a bunch of 14 to 20-year-olds, right? You guys, like, does that connect? And like people talk about like these, you can't work with these people. These kids are terrible. They can't get off their phone, but they're profiting in this business over $1 million a year. Why are they doing that? And Tony Robbins always talks about success leaves clues. The reason why they're doing that is why.
Process.
The same thing every single minute is happening. Like there's no deviation from it. Like there's no like, oh, we're cook this burger a little bit bigger.
No, they're not changing the order. I mean, and that's it. And so when you look at your business, if you want to scale and you want to be super efficient and more profitable, if you talk about your time and stuff like that, is having a consistent process. And most people get really caught up in this, but having a consistent process that delivers a consistent outcome is what you're looking for. Right. And so nailing it from the initial call, what happens? What do you do? What is the conversation? I know with you guys talk about having a lead intake form, right? So you're making sure you're setting yourself up and the team up for success right off the bat. Most people fly by the seat of their pants. And what I say is they have an inconsistent process and they get an inconsistent result. Yeah. Right. And if you look at maximizing your conversion ratio and being as efficient as possible, if you have a process, a checklist that you're going to follow, it's going to make it a heck of a lot easier to be able to do that. If not, you're going to be able to audit where the problems are because you can pinpoint where this is where it's like, you do a medical checkup and you go through and do all the stuff and you say, well, this is where we're having issues is every time we send a letter to the lawyer, we have to follow up them 3 times, whatever. Okay, we need to relook at that part of the process, right? Yeah. So that allows you to constantly improve on that process and make it better so you can scale and do more volume.
Well, like the lead form for me, it's like a foundation. It's like you don't build a house on, hay. You build it on concrete, like, and it's just like, and it's all going to fall apart if you don't have the proper foundation. And to me, that is like the non-negotiable foundational piece, is that, because then that's where it starts. And then it's kind of like too, like I used to, back when I was in construction many years ago, it was like, if the foundation, if the guys that came and did the excavation did a messy job, it's going to set up, every trade is going to do a mess. They're not going to clean up their mess, and everything's going to be messy. And the whole process of the job is just going to be a constant mess, where it's like you set the tone with how you start it, and you start it organized and properly structured, and everyone will follow.
Well, even if you like talking to other brokers and stuff like that, and you guys probably experienced this, is if you have a broker who has a really good process and you talk to him, the confidence level that they have is night and day compared to somebody that is like flying by the seat of their pants. And so if they're getting that initial call, you know, what is that referrals experience? What is that client's experience? Because you know, and whether like your process is way better than theirs is irrelevant. They believe their process and they trust in their process. That's all that matters, right? It's the mindset and psychology of that and that belief system.
Good point. What comes through communication with that, it's so clear. And then, they can effectively tell the client the clear next steps are going to be this. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, we went through that practice so many times when we were really ramping up with Thrive, and like we thoroughly enjoyed that. Like you break it down step by step by step, and you can see your weak spots. And you know, you start thinking after years, I'm not asking for referrals. Where can I ask for a referral? When you have it broken down, you can plant that seed in. And like when we were, you know, really like creating the process for Thrive, because there was a lot of people involved, it was always like, it doesn't matter who that client ends up with. They should get the same service with the same email templates, the same updates on the same day at the same part of the process. And every single client should leave here feeling comfortable and confident and happy because of the process that was built. And truthfully, for someone running a team, the only way that you can manage that properly is with a CRM, right? Like our CRM was built to a point where there's so many tasks and so many, you know, automated follow-ups that quite literally it would be pretty tough to screw it up, as long as you were working out of that system, because there's so many reminders of what you need to do in each step, right? Because there's, I don't know how many steps, you probably know better than me. There's 1,000 steps in a mortgage transaction,
right? How you do it, who you talk to, right? Everybody's different. And yeah, it's, I mean, but documenting to me is a phenomenal thing, because then you visually see, and if you can visually see it, then it's easier to make changes, right? If it's all in your head, it's very difficult to change it.
And I guess one thing that comes to mind for me, like, I guess I'm grateful for this, you know, always having a business partner or business partners to do this with. I just think about this single broker that's been doing this for 5 years, and like, kind of maybe all you know is your process and you don't really know what's better. I mean, to the point of coaching, which, you know, we're obviously here to talk about, but even just an accountability partner or someone else in the brokerage that you can bounce ideas off and work through this together, right? Because I think that would be a challenge for a single broker. I could see that being a major challenge to work through on your own.
I even have clients that I work with, so I kind of stumble there, but I have clients that I work with that struggle with doing this and getting this out of their head. And the old practice that I used to do, and I remember doing this with even your old partners in Thrive and stuff like that, and other brokers that you guys all know, is the Post-it notes. Is going to a room and pulling out a whole bunch of Post-it notes and writing everything down and taking a picture of it, like super simple way. I love having an accountability partner. You both do it. And then you can audit each other. Like very simple ways that you can do it. I think it's great to have a business coach. Don't get me wrong, but you don't need that. Like, so a lot of people, you guys are doing X amount of dollars so you can hire a business coach. Well, you don't need that. Like do these things, figure out your process, dial it in. You can grow your business just by having a better process.
You're not selling yourself more, here, right?
Craig. Well, I mean, I'm happy to help people out, but like it's always, there's always a reason why, right? Don't be a victim.
Well, the beauty about this business and this industry is that you can do this in so many different ways. And like the pillars of success, consistency, tracking, process, which we touched on, like, you can do all of that in your own way. But the other beauty about this, when you come to accountability and buddy system, is like there's a lot of people probably at the same spot as you, regardless of where you're at in the trajectory of your success, right? So that's pretty cool too. And like that, you know, we talked about this on a previous podcast, is just the collaboration and how, you know, willing people are to share in this industry, which I don't think has always been that way. I think that's more of like the last 10 years type of deal. And I always refer that back to what I've always been so impressed with the craft beer business, is like how all of these craft breweries are so willing to share their secrets and their recipes. And it's like, what the heck why are you sharing this? Right. Where it's like, they're just so willing to share and they all get better from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that culture is totally dripped into the mortgage broker channel. Like we are very willing to share our tips, tricks, you know, our challenges. and help each other, which is awesome. And back to this whole point, it shouldn't be very hard to find an accountability partner given
No,
the
yeah.
where, where we're at in this industry. All right.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, good stuff. So let's get into some actionable items for brokers. I'll start. People. And what I mean by that is hiring. Maybe we can kind of just jump into there, like how important that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at a business, I think you go process, you go technology, and then people. And people for me is one of the biggest leverage points that you can have in a business. So if you have the right people in there, you've got it done. I always say this is most people, when they're hiring, they fail upfront by not having a great process. So I would say if you're going to hire someone, make sure your process is very clearly laid out. Because if you want someone to come in and take stuff off your plate, you need to know what they're going to take off your plate.
Yeah.
And so inevitably what happens, and you guys have probably seen this a lot, is they hire someone because they're good at talking to clients, or they're good at, doing paperwork or whatever that role may be, but they don't know where they fit in. They don't know how that communication is. They don't know who's talking to the client or who's doing what. Inevitably, the person who got hired, who wanted to do a good job, is feeling like they're a failure. The person who hired them is like, this person's terrible. They're not doing anything. And then they end up quitting or getting fired, right? And so if you don't have that process clearly laid out, you're missing probably the number one key thing to be able to hire in your business. So I think that's the first place I'd start. Yeah.
And it's so unfair to throw somebody in that. Like, that is just such poor leadership to just throw somebody in the fire like that. And it's amazing how many realtors and mortgage brokers I've spoken to over the years. They're like, yeah, I'm really busy and I'm doing this and that, so I'm going to hire somebody. And I'm like, oh, well, what are they going to do? Like, I don't know. They're going to figure it out. Like, they're going to figure it out. What they're going to like, wow. Okay. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like, we take that to another level. Like that's back to time tracking. We're time tracking right now because we know we need to drop something off our plate, but we don't know exactly what it is. And we don't know exactly what that role is. So we're starting with time tracking. And as we go through that time tracking, we color coordinate those activities that we're doing, red, green, or we just leave them blank. And red is something that we know we absolutely should not be doing. And it might also be something that we just don't like to do. And green is something that we know we're getting, our highest, dollar per hour doing those items. And those are items that we're definitely going to keep. And at the end of this 3 weeks, we'll be able to have a very clear visual of tasks that we need to chop, and then we'll build a roll out of it. And that's just the simplest way to start. I don't know. I don't think there's really any better advice to start than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think is if you don't identify what it is that they need to do, it's going to be tough. And for most brokers, if you just take the standard thing, like you guys, that's on steroids because you guys have so much stuff going on. But a standard broker, if they just look at where the opportunity is, if we're just gonna I'm gonna dumb it down because I'm a simple man, so I'll keep it simple. But I would say a fulfillment person would probably be the number one first hire that you would look at. You could go through that process, but I would say 95% of the times it's going to be somebody to do fulfillment for you to be able to free up more time to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think we should touch on that because that's such a key piece. And I talk to so many brokers, like, I'm going to hire an underwriter. You know what? These underwriters in the industry nowadays are like, they demand a lot of money, and as they should. They're some of them are very, very good, very knowledgeable. But the reality is, it's like what you really need to do is just focus on what the best use of your time is. And it's not collecting an application. It's not collecting documents. It's not filing them and titling them. It's not, making sure the data is correct in the software you're using to submit the deal. You get a very low level person, get them licensed, like, so they can actually do all the things. But like, if somebody just did that for you, and then now all you need to do is jump into the system and look over the numbers and quickly underwrite the file, that's it. Versus you get it all the way there and then the underwriter does that for you. Like, what's the point of that? And that underwriter is going to be very, very expensive. Now, as you scale and get bigger, and we talked about this in the perfect loan process a lot, like, yes, that underwriting role is going to be needed, but for the first hire, it's definitely should not be the first hire.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Let's jump into the next piece here. Actionable items, calling prospects. Why don't we touch on that?
Just for clarity on this, I just want to make sure, because I can go in a bunch of different ways. So when you say the prospects, so we're talking about...
When I talk about calling prospects, is one, it's like just identifying maybe strategies for the right prospects to call. That could include clients, renewals, or refinances. When people think like, hey, I have to make calls, I have to do prospecting. They're like, who am I calling? Who is it that I'm calling? And I think, sometimes people overthink it, and And we talk back to what we talked about with the phone being the heaviest item on the desk. Like it can be tough to just call that listing realtor because you have a task, or you should be calling listing realtors. You've never spoken to the guy before. That can be a tough call. Why not warm up with some easier calls like past clients, right? Or and identifying opportunities such as potentially rate drops, refinances, those sorts of things. Like maybe it's just any tips, on framing conversations to maybe maximize those the engagement in those conversations.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I thought, and I just want to get clarity with. And I go back to what Derek said: is like these people, they know you, like you, trust you. So the funny thing is, it's like any relationship. The more you spend time with someone, unless you absolutely hate them, the better the relationship gets. The easier the conversation gets. Like you guys probably met brokers on, let's say, the hockey game. You meet them the first time, you see them at another event, you see them at a lender event, you may see them on a Scotia trip or something like that, and all of a sudden you became friends, and you don't have to think, oh, I don't say that person, or it's weird or awkward, because you're in touch with them. So you make it really, really easy. So I would say the first thing to me is go back to the consistency thing that we talked about. I know people want to run away from that, but be more consistent with it. With prospects, I'm a big believer in doing it in the morning. You want to say eat that frog or whatever it is. It's your day will be filled up with a whole bunch of other stuff. If you want to be really good, I would say don't open up your email. Don't look at anything. Have a list of the 5 people you want to call, pick up the phone and have conversations with them. And right now is a great time if we talk about for prospecting for referral partners. So we're start of the year. What did most people do at the end of 2024 or early in 2025? What did most people do in their business plan, right? So they're sitting there talking about their business and thinking about what they're going to do. If you could sit down and have a call and grab a coffee with your referral partners, easy way to go meet with all your realtors and ask them, like, what's your plans for 2025? What did you do in 2024? What are your goals? What are you going to do to hit those goals?
How can I help you achieve those?
That is the final question. How can I help you achieve them? And what you'll find is most brokers will be like, well, they're going to tell me, give me more referrals. If you sit down and have a conversation and ask genuine questions and care about like what they're trying to do, most of them won't say, give me more referrals. They may say it joking around, like, I can get more of your referrals, but I'd love to be able to, let's be accountability partners. Why don't we check in once in a while? Or why don't you follow up just to make sure I'm doing what I say I'm going to do? And if you listen to the top, this is me getting off on realtors, so I get on this. If you listen to the top realtors do podcasts, I've been on a realtor reward trip with one of my brokers, and he brought me along. I'm grateful for that, and it was a phenomenal experience. And the realtor said to he's like, what do we need to do to be able to, help you, support you to be able to get more business? And out of that broker there, the realtor there to the broker said, I need to see you more often. If you talk to top realtors, what they say is, I need to hear from you more often. And what most brokers think is what?
They don't want to hear from me. I'm bugging
them, right? And I always go revert this back to like lenders. If you have a lender, whether it be a First Snap person or MCAP or whatever the lender is, doesn't matter what it is, and they're showing up at your office consistently and being there and say, hey, what's going on? I'd love to be able to help you out. Some people may be like, well, that's a little bit annoying, but what you'll do is like, I'll give them a file just to see, right? Because what are they showing?
Which is so important, because it's like your tenacity to follow up and be on them is basically showing how good of a process you have. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you don't have to tell them that I'm awesome at what I do. Yeah. You're showing them by your actions.
And a good realtor with their own process will test you to see how good you are and how much you're going to, be on them, because they're going to expect that when they pass you their client.
Correct. That shows you that your attention to detail and caring about following up with the lead. So if you don't follow up with them, I'm going to send you somebody, you're not going to follow up with the lead. And if you're showing that, a dog on a bone type of thing, and like, to be respectful, but what do the numbers say in sales? How many follow-ups does it say before you get a sale? You guys know the number of that statistic? 7.
Yeah, I was going to say 8, but
seven or 8, that kind of number goes in there. But if you're saying I'm making one phone call and I haven't heard back from them, that's nothing, because even if you have a conversation, you leave a message. I always say this in regards to any calls that you do. If people don't follow up with you, it has less to do with you, more to do with them. Because who do you know? Like, I could have called and left Derek a message, and it was an important thing. Hey, Derek, call me back. We got to talk about the podcast. And Derek hears it, and he's like, that's great. And then his daughter's like, Dad, I just pooped myself. Or, I don't know what it is, but who knows what happens. Something could happen in life that changes. It's not you.
That's such a good point. Like there's so many times where I've caught myself opening an email, I'm fully intending to respond to it, and something just out of the blue comes at me like that situation has definitely happened.
Sidetracks you, right? Like
and
as a
then they're
parent,
like,
I mean,
fuck, I didn't respond to that
Didn't-
email, right? So yeah.
So that's
Okay.
I want to just on this topic, I want to hear your thoughts. So I know like a big challenge, I think for most people when it comes to calling, it's easy to sit there and go, I'm going to call 5 people a day.
Okay.
Right. So then Monday rolls around and you go, okay, I got to find 5 people to call. So I think like the preparation of a list so you can make it easy and make it efficient and make it effective, especially if it's in the morning. The last thing you want to be doing is scrolling through your CRM going, should I call him? Should I call him? Should I call her? Because that's just not efficient. You won't do it.
Well, you're getting sidetracked into something else if you're doing that.
For sure. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on preparation for lists and any strategies there. And then the other piece is, what are you saying? Right? Like we talk about marketing. It's like, if we're going to call people, we need to know what we're going to say to them. First of all, we got to know who we're going to call, and then we got to know what we're going to say. And it's always changing as in a broker's day to day. What are you calling on this week? Like when we used to do a lot of this when we were hands on in Thrive, it was like, what's our topic for the week? And what are we going to say to people? And then we had a list that we would divvy up and call, right? I don't know if you have any ideas or thoughts around that, just to make it easier for people that are going to try to tackle this.
Yeah, I think what I would say with this is, so first off, to talk about the list, what I think the best way to do it is before you end your day, write the list out, who you're going to call. Write that out, make that easy. And Jim Quick, he's a brain coach, a mind coach. I don't know if you guys have heard him, but he always talks about is like, if you open up your email, you're just going into everybody else's problems.
Yeah.
There's nothing in
100%.
there that's good for you,
Yes,
right?
that couldn't
So
be more true.
write that list down and make it 3 or 5 people. Like, yeah, you got. I mean, you're seeing it. It's bad. It's never good when you go in there. There's always something that takes you away from what you need to do. So I love that saying. And so I would say start with that. Write the list out the night before. If you're going to do it on Monday, whatever it may be, I'm a big believer in scheduling calls. So you can have kind of like a daily success plan. I've got a tracker that I share with my clients, and some use it, some don't. But Monday, you want to follow up with realtors. So Monday is a great time to follow up with realtors. Why?
After open houses, there's activity.
They worked all
They worked
weekend.
all weekend.
Yeah.
Worked all weekend, right? So then what we have is like, let's say Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, those calls, what I would do, and again, I would make it super simple. So you guys are talking about making extra calls, and I think you're going to get more business if you're doing more calls. Like I used to track, one of my clients I worked with, we would track the outbound calls, and he was 18.4 outbound calls for every funded file. So we knew the exact number.
Wow.
Right?
That's the best. Like
Most people wouldn't do that
Yeah.
though. So,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal because
Yeah.
planning is great, right?
Yes.
But what I will say with that is you want to do the easy calls. So first payment phone calls. So schedule that in. You want to do the first payment phone call. 6-month check-in.
Yeah.
Again, make that and let the client know on the first payment, I'm going to check in with you in 6 months, just make sure everything's going good. What's the other thing we want to do? Annual mortgage reviews, right? So we're picking up the phone, we're calling for annual mortgage reviews. I told you I'm going to call you. I'm just following up again. You're not just telling them how great you are, you're showing them how great you are, right? And you do that. So we do that, and then renewal. Be consistent with the renewals. Pre-approvals, Thursday or Friday. Great time to call pre-approvals. Why Thursday or Friday?
Because they're going
preparing to
shopping
go out
on the
for
weekend.
shopping, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Follow up with them. And then a great call with those realtors that are shopping with that pre-approval. Similar to what you said before, a great easy way to do that would be if you talk to Derek, who's shopping with John, the realtor. Why not call John? Hey, I called Derek. Derek said you guys are going out looking at a place. If you need anything, let me know. In addition, if you've got any clients that need help, love to be able to help them out.
So I want to touch on that piece right away because we just had a call before this podcast, and the guy on the call actually made a very good point. So the number one, I'm going to get to a point here. The number one searched word in Google and on the internet for mortgages and real estate industry is mortgage calculator. That's the number one search word. So knowing that, and those clients going out on the weekend, what are their questions going to be? Probably number related, calculator, right? And if you're a busy person or you have a family, you probably don't want to take those calls. No, you probably know you should, be available. But a lot of times what people are going to say is, hey, I know you're going out with John and shopping. I'm available. How about this? Like we all, like, especially at A Better Way, we have a free application, the mortgage app, right? Every one of your clients should have that app, because if they don't, they're going to go on Google and they're going to search it and go on somebody else's site that does have it. And then plus it's hey, just want to make sure you downloaded that app. And to the realtor too, just want to make sure you have this app, my app, that has a very good calculator in it. And it's another good touch point. It's another good reason. And it's also a great fending them off from actually calling you. because sometimes people don't want to be bothered.
On the weekend, I think it's great. And what a lot of people, so we talk about those things and they're like, well, I don't want to be a pain to follow up with them. We kind of talked about that before a little bit. And I don't, talking about this app and like, well, I don't want to be a pain. I'm following up with them too much. And what I would say, if you're not following up with them and providing this information, what are they going to do? They're going to go on their phone and they're going to find something right away. And if they find it right away, depending on who it is, so they're going to find it and they're going to bob the mortgage broker. Now the algorithm kicks in. And so when the algorithm kicks in, then they're going to get more of their stuff and do all that. You want them to be coming to you for information and stuff. And I always say this is like, just in general, even with rates and all that stuff, because people get worried about rates, whatever. And it doesn't matter what you do. They're going to find a better rate in 3 seconds. After you talk to them, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because if they can't, then they don't know how to type, right? They've got broken fingers. I don't know what it is, but like it's a done deal. So like, make sure you're doing everything you can to show that you want the business. Make a great experience. I think that's it.
After that call we had, we're like, that is going to be a focus. Like, that's such a simple tool. We have it. It's free. It's part of what our our brokerage is all about. A lot of brokerage. That's a common tool. It's not like something special to a better way. Almost every brokerage probably has some form of a mortgage calculator app. Like, make sure your clients have that.
And like you said, is you can, with your realtors, it's customized to them.
Yeah.
Like,
no
you're
brainer.
in there, they're in there. It works out easy. They don't have to do it. It looks like it's their stuff giving to the clients and they're providing a better level of service. I love it. Yeah.
This is a good segue.
So I guess first off, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Did I get, okay. Yes. So I just make sure that I covered it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Because after Dean took over, we just want to make sure he covered it.
All right. This is a good segue. We're going to jump into the TMS and some client conversion strategies. So TMS, let's do an introduction to what is TMS.
So just to preface this, I did not design the software. I'm a big believer in it. So one of my clients, Russ Morrison, who's a broker with TMG now, and it doesn't matter what brokerage he's with, he's kind of agnostic. But what he wanted to do is, he's very analytical in his approach, and he's a big believer in education-based marketing. So that's kind of how it started. He documents everything. And so what he did is he created software where he feels, and we've seen the results, but he wanted to use it for himself, and it's kind of gone out to market. It's a lead conversion tool. So from the upfront part of the process, the initial call, all the way to funding, he uses the software to be able to convert more clients and increase the volume that you're going to get from that as a result. In addition to that, so I'm going to give 3 different ways and we can get into all the details. What we use it as right now is a phenomenal tool, and we've got with testimonials is one of our clients that's using this tool found over $8 million in mortgages in less than 2 weeks in his book in regards to refinances. So we know we're in a rate dropping environment. There's opportunity out there. How do we optimize and maximize that opportunity? We need to have it simple, because if you have to go manually do the calculations, most people won't do that because that's too much work. So they just go back into their email and they deal with another problem, right? So we have a tool that allows you to do that calculation in literally 3 minutes and gives you an easy way to be able to reach out to clients. This is what you talked about, coming up with reasons. So that's why I love this software, to be able to do it. The last thing we look at is renewals. So right now, what are the stats? So the next 3 years, what's the numbers? 80, 70, between 70 and 80% renewals?
Oh, it's huge. There's like 300 something billion.
Right? And everybody, we can right or wrong, but we know there's a whole bunch. Not only because 25, 26 was, 20, 21, and then we have all the 3 years, which were, so then we're pushing those back. So there's a whole bunch. And most people with renewals, they do a terrible job. They don't call them. They might send out an email that goes out, but running through and having a process. And so when we talk about results, like Russ alone, and he's working with other brokers, but he's got a 66% conversion rate on renewals.
Which is significant, especially in this market with the amount of, frustration we're having with banks undercutting us significantly.
Yeah. So what he's doing is he's looking for and understanding ways to be able to create value within the client's actual specific situation. So it's not a fancy paid ad or anything like that. It's actually sitting down with them and understanding like what is their situation. So we call it a needs analysis that we use. And so we go through a very detailed needs analysis and we uncover what they need, what the recommendation is based off of that. A lot of brokers will, they just say, well, if the bank's giving you that, just sign with them. And they won't even take the 15 minutes to go through and do a review or do a checkup just to make sure that it makes sense. It's because the rate's lower. And so if you're just competing on rate, you guys have been in this game long enough, you're losing.
Yeah.
Right. Especially now, you're losing even more than like Ron Butler's going to eat your lunch all day, every day. And I mean, and it's
They'll
good
pay-
company. And
yeah,
but
yeah,
you understand what I'm saying with,
100%.
right? And the banks. So you need to find ways to be able to compete. And going back to like that 15 minutes investment of time, because those people can convert higher, it's not a bad use of your time. Every one of those clients that we meet with and we see that go through that, when they go through that, even if they stay with the bank, so the 2 out of 5, all of them are grateful that you
Yeah.
took the time to do it. So when they're grateful, what do you get an opportunity to do?
Well,
Referral. Or
Referral?
They're going to come. You
Track their data. Is it okay if I do
continue
annual
that
mortgage
annual
reviews?
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and that's such a good point, because like if you take the time to do that and you show them, and then say they take that strategy, like maybe you uncover a strategy and they take it and they still go to the bank and just implement your strategy at the bank. Yeah, that sucks, right? The loyalty, maybe sucks, but they will definitely appreciate the value that you gave them, and you have to expect a referral or at least a deal down the road from them because you're tracking it.
Yeah, and I would say you expect,
You
you
gotta ask
do the
for it.
work to get
Yeah.
it. Yeah, you ask
Yeah.
for it, right? And so, and I think that's a really great thing. Like if you have a bigger database, it's easier to be able to
Yeah.
make,
Yeah.
who am I going to call? Well, the larger the database, the easier it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can pick up on that, I forget who said it, so you guys can, fix it for me. But it's lose the deal, keep the client.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes you have to do that. But if you keep the client, you keep the referral partner happy, those are people that you can go back to and do it. So yeah.
Just on TMS, what are kind of the main data points that someone would have to have tracked? Because again, if someone doesn't have a CRM, they don't really have any data prepared. Like a system like this in technology, you have to be able to feed it data. So
Yeah.
what are kind of the main points that are required to optimize a program like TMS?
Yeah. So if you talk about from the initial call and running through scenarios, it's that you're going to get that from the
Yeah.
client right up front. But if we're talking about refinances and renewals,
analyzing existing.
So if we're analyzing that, what we're looking at right now, and again, I'm not the expert, but if you look at, we need to know term, maturity date, monthly payment, or if they do biweekly, whatever their payment is. So understand that balance. Easy enough to run with an AM schedule, and a lot of times people have that in there. So if you go to your commitment, you should have a lot of this stuff there. You can look at the AM schedule, and then what we want to look at is, I think that's it. So
I guess it would be lender and then
lender. So lender
product,
rate,
obviously, right?
Yeah. So
and I guess a tip for anyone listening, if you're tracking, we screwed up on this for a while and then we fixed it. But when we were tracking variables, we were putting in the interest rate rather than a discount.
Oh, the discount,
which
yeah.
it's next to impossible to track, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With TMS, like there's a lot here, and we'll unpack.
No, I try to get.
We're definitely going to unpack this with visual demonstration. So we have a webinar coming up. We haven't actually announced it yet, but we will be doing a webinar specifically on this software for our team, and so you can actually visually see this. So if you're a broker with a better way, more to come. If you're a broker listening to this, definitely reach out to Craig, Russ, for direct. We'll put the contact information below. We'll probably have Russ on the show as well, just because he's so dialed he's such an analytical guy and so dialed.
Analytical.
So maybe we'll have you on too to rein him in a bit.
That's exactly it.
But yeah, it's I know it's a powerful tool. We're very excited to action this, and with that, what is there any actionable tips we can kind of leave and put a bow on this for brokers to maybe take away to implement TMS and outside of what I just suggested?
Yeah, I think so. What there's 14-day trial. There's videos on the website that kind of walk you through stuff. It is a very robust system. So like any system that you go into, it can be overwhelming, right? So what I would say is, like right now, if you have a database of clients, you want to look for refinance opportunities. So focus on that.
Yeah.
Right now, most people have renewals coming up. So you can look at that and then kind of get more comfortable with the software. So that's what I would say with it is, if you dive in too deep and try to change everything, you're going to get overwhelmed. And if you get overwhelmed with software, you usually stop using it, right? So keep it really simple. Try the 14-day trial. Russ is really good with setting up a time to run through the software with people and understand what they're doing, what their business looks like, and then help to optimize to be able to do it. So I'd highly recommend people take it. If you don't like it, like all the power to you, at least try it out, because there are a lot of tools out there. And what, again, going back to what I said before is, if you are not educating people and providing this value up front, they're going to go out looking for it.
Yeah.
And they're going to find it, because they're going to find it on, well, not TikTok anymore, but they're going to find it on Instagram, on YouTube, on wherever it may be. Why don't you want this coming from you? Right?
Yeah. Ron Butler will probably still be on TikTok.
He could be. I don't know. He could.
I bring him up again because I said the first swear word on this show today.
I was
the history of
noticing
the
that. I'm
show.
like, that was an F bomb.
Yeah. So,
So
I
you're
guess-
not. You're probably
so-
about 10,000 behind Ron.
Yeah. So now we can officially invite Ron on the show.
Yeah, he will be angry, and he will.
Yeah.
His volume will go up and
Yeah.
down. Yeah.
All right.
Great
Well,
podcast. Yeah.
with that, let's dive into the ABW exclusive coaching program that we're working with you specifically, and Derek and yourself have been chatting about this and planning this for some time. So maybe Derek, you can kind of frame it, and we'll then just dive into this a little bit.
I mean, we've talked about coaching a lot because we've utilized coaches for, years and years and years, and it quite literally excelled our business to a point that we never could have imagined, right? And a huge component to that is accountability, and especially with partners, I mean, it's tough, right? There's so many different ideas as we talk about, especially if you're a busy broker, you just lose track of where you're supposed to be going, right? You're just kind of battling all day, and then you shut it off and you're doing the same thing the next day. So we thoroughly understand the importance of coaching. And obviously we've had a long-standing relationship with yourself, and, we've been going back and forth on different ideas for a little while. And I think coaching is something that most brokers think about. They know about it. They don't really know where to start, what to do. Is it too expensive? Is it going to be for me? So, through some back and forth with Craig and myself, we've come up with a really cool program that I think is affordable. For it's basically a group of 12 brokers. There's a certain type of broker that I think we want to fit into this, so everyone's kind of at a similar stage. But I mean, we have a lot of confidence in this, and this is almost like, in my mind, it's almost a bit of a teaser, for people to jump in and learn coaching and have some real life scenarios that, these 12 people can fast forward, 10, 12 months and have really positive outcome feedback. And I think that will just really integrate into the culture of a better way, right? And that's kind of my hope for this long term, is that people start to really understand the benefit of coaching and what it can do for your business. And again, that's why we're here today, and we're really excited to launch that, and I think that there's a huge opportunity there.
I'm excited about it. You guys, like I said, we've been talking for a while trying to figure stuff out, and I only have so much capacity to be able to do one-on-one high-end coaching and stuff like that. So trying to find, and I appreciate you guys helping out to be able to come up with something that works for everybody and benefit. And so what we've come up with is, I think what it's going to be is going to be an 8-month program. We're going to have 12 people that are going to be involved in it, which I'm really excited about. The investment's going to be $799 per month is what the investment's going to be. We're going to have 2 90-minute sessions that we're going to go through, and it's myself as well as Russ, who is the creator of TMS. And so our goal is, we looked at a lot of programs out there, and there's a lot of different ways to be successful in doing a coaching program. A lot of people, they do really like short, huge, like push hard, make 50 calls a day. And, I know you will grow your business, right? But when we talked about the pillars, we talked about consistency. We talked about process. We talked about some of those things. And so what we want to do is we want to really get people set up with a really good process that is going to drive in results, increase conversion ratio, and be a foundation for them to be able to grow and scale their business. We know they're going to pay for their investment. Like we know, whether it be 5 times or 10x their investment, we know that's going to happen based off of the results. We don't know what it's going to be. We're excited to see what it is, but working with them to develop this process, we're going to develop some phenomenal brokers that I think is going to be kind of like the springboard for some crazy stuff for them in the years moving forward, right? Yeah.
Very exciting. I can't wait to watch and be a part of this. Very thankful for you to step up and do that, because I know how busy you are, and I know how hard it is to free up capacity for that. And Russ as well. The guy's traveling all over the place for our association, being a big part of MPC.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
So yeah, we really appreciate that. With that, I want to just touch on one piece with that and your success with coaching.
Yeah.
I know the numbers, but maybe you can just remind us and for the listeners, somebody that starts coaching with you, what is typical, like what should they expect from a success rate if they follow and do the work?
Yeah, that's
a big
perhaps
if,
follow
yeah.
and do the work, right?
Yeah.
That's like everything, right?
Yeah.
You can hire the best
Yeah.
coach in the world. Like we were joking around last week.
Yeah.
Or I think it was one Corey we were talking about is, you make all this money, you hire Butch Harmon, but you don't listen to him, and your golf swing is still going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But so what I've seen in my results, and I track everything, is I've seen a 56% increase in the first year of coaching, and that is like right there in regards to it's volume, and so revenue and stuff could be changed, but 56% 1 year. Usually what happens is you have a big increase and then things will stable out. A lot of times with that is you grow your business and then you need to hire. So if you're hiring and you're working on training, what's one thing that falls off a lot of times is more of that business development stuff, right? So that's just the nature. But that's what I've seen throughout, doing this for 10 years now. And that's my experience. And I joke around that I'm not that smart, so I like to keep it simple, but it's simple things that can be executed consistently. I think you guys are understanding how I work, is what we try to do. And so that's my focus, is we want to make it simple. We want to make you make it easy to be able to execute on that consistently. We're going to track stuff, funny enough, all the pillars you talked about, and we're going to get results. Yeah. And so that's really the process, and that's how I work with my clients, and that's the results I've seen so far. And it's exciting. Like I love working with clients because it's super exciting to see them succeed and build their business, which is phenomenal. Yeah.
I think people might, like, you didn't touch on this. It's obviously built into this, but I think people might underestimate the accountability component to this, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to do a training call, whether it be with a group or one-on-one, and you give someone a specific task that they need to take away, and it just doesn't happen because, as we talked about, life gets busy, right? Like, having a consistent follow-up, like, I would be embarrassed to go to the next call and I'm like, yeah, Craig, sorry, buddy, I didn't do that. Like, I wouldn't want to go to that call. So even if I'm doing it right before that call, I'm probably going to get it done. Like, it's going to force me to take these steps that I'm leery to do. Right. So I think accountability, like, in and amongst everything else that you just said, is probably one of the most important parts of coaching.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I appreciate that you saying that, because it's easy for me to say it, but somebody that's actually gone through it and experienced on a consistent basis, that is such a big thing. It's like, we all know what to do.
Yeah.
Most of us don't do it.
Yeah.
And we're not lacking for knowledge. We're lacking for wisdom and actually taking action on the stuff that we know. And that's the biggest thing in this group coaching program that we're talking about, because one-on-one is different than the group one. But the group one, we're really going to take the time to be able to take action and do some of the things and do the training. So we're not saying, yeah, I'll do that, because as soon as you get off that call, a group coach program, again, then your kid comes in, or you have to drop them off at sports, or another call comes in from your realtor. This is a hot deal. So you don't take action on any of the stuff you worked on. And if you don't take action, you don't implement, you're not going to grow and build your business. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you very much, Derek. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much a wrap for what we wanted to touch on today. Like that, I thought this was an excellent episode. These are all the things that really make us tick. Just to kind of recap, like, the top 3 reasons brokers have found success. We touched on that again with the pillars of success: consistency, tracking, process. Touching on some actionable items for brokers. I think there's some really good nuggets in there. And this TMS software, client conversion strategies, I can't stress that enough, especially with what's going on with these rates. Brokers have to adapt and start to just realize that this might be the way it's always going to be, and so get better, right? And that's all about what we're talking about here and how to do that. It's very clear. I'm really excited about the coaching program, and I mean, that's pretty much it. Unless you got any
I
words.
just like to say, the one thing that I always look at is what you talked about. I think 2025 is an exciting year. We've had a few years, but what I would say with 2021 was great for a lot of people, but I think it screwed people up because it became easy to do $15 million in volume or whatever the number may be. And so they never really had to work on the foundational things in business that makes them successful, the things that you guys spent a lot of time on. Yeah. So I think a lot of people right now, they haven't had the years they wanted to have. Albeit the market hasn't been in a good position, but they're looking at, what can I do to retool to be better? Yeah. How can I better serve my clients? How can I better serve my referral partners? So now more than ever, I think this is a great time to utilize tools like TMS, to utilize, like, for ABW, this group coaching program. But what else can you do that's going to make you better and create that better experience? So I think what I'm seeing is there's a lot more people that are looking for this now. I'm getting calls for coaching, whereas 2024, it was like being in the desert. Like, it was hard to get, people weren't too excited about it because they're worried about all these 3-year deals not making any money. But I think now is really exciting time for it. Yeah.
I feel like I talk about this quite a bit, like, just Canada in general has always kind of been behind the US in so many different ways. And we learned this when we started coaching back in 2018 and having coaches down in the US and just realizing how different the culture was down there and, like, how important the coaching culture was. And, like, the reference was always like, LeBron James has coaches. Yeah. Like, why wouldn't you, right? Why are you not trying to get better always in everything that you do? And I felt like just aside from the 2021, like there's just never really been much of a coaching culture in our industry in Canada.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's definitely shifting right now. And that might be part of the reason as well that we're seeing an uptick in this. And we've definitely had this request come to us quite a bit in the recent, like let's say year. And we're dedicated to continue to provide more value for our agents and continue to go down this path. So again, we'll wrap it there. Really looking forward to this program, everything you're doing, and happy to have you, here and on the team. So
thank you guys
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
sir.
Yeah. Appreciate
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in. If you found value in this show, please subscribe to our channel on your preferred platform. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Your support is incredibly appreciated. We also welcome your reviews and feedback, which are crucial in helping us deliver outstanding educational content. Feel free to share your thoughts. A 5-star review would be fantastic if you think we earned it. Lastly, a vital announcement about Backpack Buddies, our chosen charity for 2025. This remarkable organization addresses a hidden hunger issue many are unaware of in British Columbia. While school districts provide meals during school hours, numerous children face food scarcity at home, particularly during the weekends. Backpack Buddies steps in to support these vulnerable children, ensuring they have easy to prepare, familiar food for weekends. This is achieved through collaborations with schools and an extensive distribution network. Your contribution can make a significant difference. With just $20, you can give a child in need a food bag from Backpack Buddies filled with enough meals and snacks to sustain them over the weekend and more. Once again, thank you for listening and see you on the next one.